Welcome to Eye on the Money, the television show that gives you insights into how to improve your financial well-being, as well as how to make your money work for you. I'm Ingrid Nantege. Now, in today's episode, we take a look at entrepreneurship, what it means, what it takes to be one, and how you can reap from it. A 2018 study A 2018 study done by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that nearly 400,000 of the 7.3 million micro, small, and medium enterprises close shop every year. The figure could be higher, considering only 1.6 million of the 7.3 million SMEs are registered and easier to monitor. This means that the majority of individually owned businesses in the country have a shelf life of just 1 year. Joining me in studio to discuss how to successfully carry out entrepreneurship is personal finance expert and CEO of Centonomy, Waithaka Gatumia. You're welcome, Waithaka.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy we managed to get you here.
Eventually, it's been long. We started a while back. I don't know what happened.
What did
I do?
Here we are now.
To chase? No.
Do you not
I'm
forgive?
Glad to be here. I'm glad
Thank
to be
you.
Here. I'm glad to be here.
I've also been trying to lock you down though, so it's been mutual.
Yes.
Now, this entrepreneurship thing that we keep talking about, people keep throwing around.
Yes.
What does it even mean?
It's the new buzzword, isn't it?
It is. It's the rev of the town.
I think at the most basic level, it's the thought process is it's a person who has thought about starting a business. But I think we have to go deeper into it because I think not everybody who starts a business is necessarily an entrepreneur.
Right.
And I think, for instance, at Centonomy, we are working really hard to help those who start businesses to begin to think like an entrepreneur. And as far as we're concerned, it's not just simply running a business or starting one, but the thought that you're building a business that can work without you. Most of us, when we start the business, it's built around us. I'm, for instance, invested in the filmmaking business as well. And when I started that business, it was all about me. I was the one behind the camera, the one in front of the camera, writing the scripts. Everything was about you. And so, that's what I'm saying. And it's because the thought process usually is let's start. And it's okay at the startup level where the value is in you. But what an entrepreneur is trying to do is to create a business where the value is in the company and not in the entrepreneur. And I think that's where the difference is. We need to begin to build businesses that don't require us. They have the structures in place and the value that somebody will come to that business whether you're there or not. And entrepreneurs are trying to build businesses to get to that level, to get to the level where now anyone else can come on board with the structures that are in place because the business is the one that is creating value. If they were coming to me at that time because I was the one behind everything and that's not where the business is because when I'm not there, there's no value. But if I can train up a team, like this amazing team that you have here in the studio, to begin to produce content that doesn't require me, then I'm heading the direction of entrepreneurship.
Right, makes a lot of sense. But in line with what you're saying, and also in your own words, entrepreneurship is the buzz of the town right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing a situation where people are being told, oh, you need to work for yourself. You need to quit your job, be an entrepreneur. Like people are actually being advised, like forget about what you're doing. You need to be your own boss. As the expert here, what's your take on this?
Well, I think as your intro mentioned, it's not easy. I know people are looking for the easy way out. I don't want a boss. And so I'm going to start my own business. I'll be my own boss. And apparently that's the route to financial freedom. Not necessarily. I think it's one of those routes. But entrepreneurship is truly a discipline of a kind. I think those statistics that you mentioned, we've been trying to get the details behind it because I think they might paint a picture that's not quite real. So the fact that a business stopped working at that time does not mean that the entrepreneurs stopped working. And the likelihood is those who have started a business, it is usually not the first or even the second business that ends up being what they get known for. Rather, it is that they have stuck with this process of entrepreneurship and learned through those failures that have come along the way in order to get to that business. So we've been dealing, and many times at Centonomy, we bring entrepreneurs to come and speak to our classes. And I'm always amazed at the amount of failure in those who have succeeded.
Right.
And it is those failures that have catapulted them to the next level. So you find somebody, this is their third business, and that's where they found success. But they had 2 other businesses that didn't succeed. Does that mean that the entrepreneur failed? No, probably the business idea failed, or maybe the structures behind it failed. So those statistics are not the end. And I think we must begin to see, is it that all those businesses I want to know, because we're doing the study actually to find out, I want to know, where did that entrepreneur go? The likelihood is, I started a chicken business, it didn't quite work out. I'm not just going to leave that piece of land, I'll move into something else. Maybe I'll put a greenhouse or something like that. And so we need to begin to think of it as a process rather than a destination entrepreneurship that we're going to get into. Yeah?
There's something you mentioned that I really, really liked,
Yes.
and that's something that people don't fully understand. You said it's not easy.
Yes.
So for someone who's trying to venture into entrepreneurship,
Yes.
what qualities should they have? For example, a musician has to have a good voice. They have to have stage presence. There's some of those basics in any trade that you venture into that ideally you must have.
Yes.
What are the qualities of an entrepreneur?
I'd beg to differ with you.
Please differ with me.
I especially love talking to artists of whatever kind, because there's a thought process that if you're not gifted or talented, that you can't get into the business, for instance, of music, or the business of acting, or the business of whatever it is that you're going to. I think the business side is so important. I think many of us have watched all these shows, like for instance American Idol, and you see somebody like Simon Cowell there. He's in the music business. He's not a great musician, but he has found his space in that business, in recognizing talent, in financing that talent and growing it into a business. So I would look at an entrepreneur and say this: you need to have the fortitude to be able to stick with it until you figure out what actually works. So I think one of the most important areas is strength of character. That's what I've seen in most successful entrepreneurs, because you find that the ability to work even through failure, but to still work at the same level and keep going, that's where I've seen the difference between those who have succeeded in entrepreneurship and those who haven't. Because, as I said, it's not easy. And at Centonomy, we always say wealth creation is simple, but it's not easy. Simplicity is that hard work, continue to do that hard work, keep going, keep learning, continue to work at those proposals, because it's not going to be the first investor who's going to put money into your business. You need to learn how do you integrate with investors. Dealing with customers is a completely different situation. Does it mean that if you miss the first customer that's the end? Now I can't do anything about it. So that strength of character is what makes a huge difference in entrepreneurs, and the willingness to learn, because there's a constant learning. And this is especially true in our generation, where business is changing minute by minute.
That's a fact.
Somebody who started a taxi business 5 years ago is now figuring out, what do I do? Because all these apps have come online.
Uber, Taxify,
and this was not what was there in that same space. And by the way, all those taxi drivers who are in that taxi business need to be thinking heavily about what's next. Because right now, it's about self-driving taxis. So that business industry is going to change very soon. You and I are going to be in this city called Nairobi and be taken in a taxi without a driver in it. I'm telling you, it'll happen in our lifetime. It will happen in our lifetime. So what are all these drivers who are on the road going to be doing? So we, as an entrepreneur, there's a willingness to learn, and not just the fortitude and a willingness to learn, because the business environment continues to change rapidly.
Now, Waithaka, you brought up the aspect of investors, which was actually my next question.
Good.
Because a lot of entrepreneurs, usually they can't do it on their own, especially if your dream is massive. It's not like it's away from, you know what I mean.
Yes.
So as an entrepreneur, I'm looking for an investor to work with. What are the considerations I should put into place? Should I just look for a rich man and say, hey, you have money, I have this big dream, help me out? What are some of the things that are necessary when you're looking for a potential investor for your business?
So at Centonomy, we bring in industry experts to help in the training. And we've partnered with a couple of different organizations. Horizon Africa is one of the investment firms that actually partners with us. And they deal directly with VC firms and other institutions that are putting money into businesses. And they do a presentation for the classes where they talk about the value of no return, which is usually the startup stage before the business starts making money. And when I listened to the presentation, it was quite amazing because they talk about at the startup stage, you need money from the 3 F's. Friends, family, and fools who are willing to invest in you at that point. And fools is used lovingly.
Of course.
Because
it's a term of endearment.
It is that they're willing to put their money behind you. The idea is that money is patient, or that money, by the way, is not necessarily, how would I put it, there's no strings attached. And that gives you some team and some space for you to be able to work and to get the business running. If you go at the early stage of business for money where there is an interest rate attached to it, where there is conditions attached to it, that makes it extremely difficult. And so you want to get the business moving, proof of concept, and then bring on board those now, once the business has that revenue coming through, now begin to think who would be willing to put money into this business and who are the best partners to bring on board. So I advise most people, and we do at Centonomy as well, please don't be in a hurry to go and borrow money from a bank. And note, I'm not saying don't, I'm just saying don't be in a hurry.
Yeah.
Have a lot of time to think, especially at the startup stage. Have you proved the concept yet? Because I find a lot of people looking for money in that same. Look for friends, family, and some fools who might be interested in your business and see how that will work out. Get it running and then now look for some extra cash along the way. Because when investors come on board, they come with their own conditions. If you talk about the major VC firms, they want to come, invest, and over some time, then they take their money out. They want to be able to make a profit over a period of time. Are you ready for that yet? Many businesses are not ready for that kind of investment. So most of us who are starting the business will get that money from our savings, from the things that we've been trying to raise cash, from our friends, our family, and those who are the fools, lightheartedly, who are willing to invest in us. That's the starting place. And then partner with industry experts to assist at that point when you're thinking about getting serious investment in, because then they can help you navigate that space. Some businesses are ready for it. What are you going to do at that space?
Right. Now, this next question, we've kind of touched a bit of it, but I feel like we need to delve a bit deeper into it.
Sure.
We've talked about the qualities that an individual should have, top of the list being resilience.
Yeah.
However, now you talked about like have a foolproof plan, fully understand the business that you're going to do. But my question is, what considerations should one make now in regard to the business that they're going into before going into that business? What should they know at the top of it? What is vital? Know
the industry. I've heard various speakers talk about that you need to be an expert to understand the industry. Or be an expert in that field. Not necessarily. I think we have the capacity to learn. And I've found one of my good friends, he is an investor in the tech industry. So he has a firm that was invested in doing apps, mobile apps, and different things like that. He also got into advertising. He is not in advertising, and he has never written any code or anything like that, but he understood the market. And then he brought on board people who were experts in that field to be able to help that business to be able to grow. And I remember he was sharing at some point that he was explaining that he actually hired somebody and was paying them more than he was paying himself as the owner of the business, because the value was in him and the skills that he has. So understand the business and the market that you're getting into. If you understand the market, then you don't make the mistakes that many of us as Kenyans have made. I think, I know this is a cliche, but it's true. Kenyans, we tend to follow the trend. What's the newest thing out there?
Yeah.
And then everybody floods that market. The famous ones are things like quail eggs. And I keep telling people, there is money in quail and quail eggs if you understood the industry.
Right.
And in every place that I've gone, I usually say, look, it's not that the business was wrong, it's that we didn't understand the market. Everybody in this room, everybody in the team who's here have eaten chicken in the last probably 1 month.
Right.
If I was to ask who has eaten quail or quail eggs, there's no market. Most of us haven't in the last 1 month. There's probably 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But if all of us are producing quail and quail eggs and there's no market for it, then there's an issue. But there are those who are already in the industry, who understood it, who know their market, who know the restaurants that they're supposed to get to. What is it that they are learning from there. So there's money in whatever industry if you understand it. So look to understand and be an expert in the industry and the market that you're getting into. Then you'll see what's going to happen.
Makes a lot of sense.
I hope so.
I'm honestly almost certain that by the time we're done with this conversation, I'm going to be calling up my people like, yeah, so about that business I was talking to you about, I'm almost there.
I like that you have people. You know, your people. I don't know.
My investors, my fools.
You see, that's what
so we're definitely going to pick up this conversation, but for now, I have to take a really, really quick break. Sure. We'll go for a break right now, and as usual, you can be part of the conversation by sending your comments and feedback to our social media handles at Metropol TV KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Eye on the Money, and today we're discussing the fundamentals of entrepreneurship. And joining me in studio is the CEO of Centonomy, also personal finance expert, Waidaka Gatumia. Now, just to pick up our heated conversation. Yes. Oh no, first of all, I'll sample social media.
Sure, go ahead.
Because some of our viewers usually have brilliant questions that need answering. Today I'll sample from Twitter, and Dorcas wants to know, can I have a full-time job and still be an entrepreneur? This is a very good question because, like I said when we were starting off, people keep telling you, drop your job, be your own boss, work on your own terms. Is there a middle ground? Is there a way in which you can do both, and how?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Break it down.
Because you're asking me, like, in a world where there are absolutely no rules to give you a rule, I think in general that it is possible to have a business and work at the same time. But when we're defining entrepreneurship, as I said, you're building value in that business, it's going to be very difficult to do so while you're fully invested elsewhere. Right. So maybe if you have a partner who's fully invested in that business and is trying to grow it as well to the level that it needs to be, maybe then it's possible to have a full-time job and do that. But I think at some point, most entrepreneurs step out and actually take that leap and say, you know what, I'm going to put my heart and soul behind this and get into it. But as I said, there are no hard and fast rules. I think it depends on what you're willing to do. I have a friend of mine who has a perfect job. He works in an embassy, and so all his paperwork he cannot leave with. And so when he clocks in at 9 and he leaves at exactly 3 p.m. and he can't do work at home for his office. And so he has time from 3 all the way till 8 p.m. to go and do other businesses and do everything else. You see, that's something, there's no hard and fast rule, but I think it probably requires a lot more effort to be able to get the business to the point that it is the value that we're looking for.
Now speak up the conversation from where we were before the break.
Sure.
You mentioned that one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make is because they want to follow the fad, the trend. I'm doing quail, so you decide also going to do quail. The next person is going to do quail. However, right now as it is, you've had the figures, you've had the statistics. We would assume the market is really saturated with entrepreneurs. There's nothing that, or maybe what's there that hasn't been done. So the question is there really, really room for more entrepreneurs, and what do they need to do to stick out, to be different from what's already currently available?
All right. So in our country, we're talking about a huge deficit in jobs. And so it's no surprise to me that there are many people who are trying to make a living by starting up a business. And as I said before, having a business and being an entrepreneur are not necessarily the same thing. And I think many people start a business and it creates enough income for them to be able to live, but it's for them. Like you'll be a hairdresser, and so you do hairdressing, and that's what earns you. And you could be called an entrepreneur. You're probably a business owner or a business person. You own your own business or you're self-employed. But an entrepreneur will now want to take it to the next level. I own my own shop. I own my own business. I'm not the only one who's doing the hair in that business. If I get other people on board, and people will come to that business whether I am there or not, now we're getting into the entrepreneurial space because you're creating value in the business, not just in yourself. So, I mean, as you heard, the statistics are there because simply we don't have enough jobs, and so everyone is trying to feed themselves. Does that mean that they're all entrepreneurs? Maybe, maybe not. I wouldn't be quick to judge. But I think we need that kind of culture for the country to begin to grow, because that's how we develop jobs if we can begin to think, if I've started this business, who else can I bring on board to help? How can I grow it beyond myself? I think that's probably the point. I don't know if I fully answered your question.
Fully.
Maybe you can try and
No.
draw more out of me if you can.
No, you're doing amazing.
Okay.
So when you go into entrepreneurship,
Yes.
you mentioned it yourself, due diligence is very important.
Correct.
It's fully important to understand the plan for your business, to fully understand the business. However, how important also is it to have a mentor? Someone who's been there. Is it a necessity, or you can't even do without one? What's your take on that?
I think as human beings, we learn from everyone around us. I think that's how, as human beings, we've been able to grow. We're not reinventing the wheel because somebody invented the wheel. So it's very useful to be around other business people. Let me give you the example that really resonates with my soul. That in my years of training and also in my years of actually just being in Kenya, there's a community, the Asian community in Kenya have really built a wonderful business culture.
That's true.
And I think it's because it tends to remain in the family. And you'll find young children in a shop selling goods or just simply being around the shop. There's a wonderful restaurant called Za in our building. And every evening after school, the restaurateur's son comes and he's in the shop. So he's learning about business by simply being around it. And so definitely to your response about is mentorship important? I think it is. It's good to be around other business owners and to work together to understand the differences that are there. We've seen the same kind of effect like in the Centonomy classes for entrepreneurs, that we have different entrepreneurs at different levels. And you find that the sharing that goes on in that space is amazing. And you'll find that entrepreneurs, because they've understood just how hard it is to make it, they're very willing most of the times to share their experiences and what they've gone through so that you don't have to go through the same space. So is mentorship important? I think yes. But sometimes the idea of mentorship is that you go look for somebody and say, can you be my mentor? No.
Right, no.
It's about being in the space to see them function, to see how they work. And so many times, if you are astute and you have a job, watch how the owner of that business functions. That's the mentorship that's going to make a huge difference because you're learning on the job. I will say this, however. Remember we talked about fortitude at the beginning, that strength of character. At the startup stage, many of us will need to actually get our hands dirty, understand the business, understand what's going on, and try. And in trial, there may be some failures, there may be some successes, and you're essentially learning the ropes as you do. So, in as much as it's great to have people around you, you still have to get your hands dirty.
Right.
And no two businesses are the same. I've seen this over and over again, where people ask, Waidaka, what's the safest business to get into? Just like the safest investment where there are high returns. And
no one's trying to lose their money.
I tell them if I knew that, I would not be seated here. I would be on my own private island with my own jet because I know what if I knew the secret.
It's true.
Because even when it's a business structure that has worked around the world, I always talk about these franchises that you're seeing locally. So very recently, there was a pizza franchise, an American pizza franchise that came to this country. They have a couple of outlets. They opened an outlet near our office. And in a couple of months, it shut down. And you would think, this has a proper business structure. It has staff. It has a menu. There's nothing new. It should be plug and play, and yet it didn't work. So I don't think there's any guarantee in business other than that there'll be change and there'll be some challenges to overcome. And if you're willing to stick with it, at some point you'll be able to overcome those challenges. So for those who are thinking, should I get into business or not? Think about it, but I think there's great profit to be found there, but you have to take the risk. And when you do that and you continuously getting better at what you're doing, you get the learning that you need to do, be around other entrepreneurs, the mentorships there, come for classes like what we have at Centonomy for entrepreneurs. It's getting you better at what you want to do. I think that's a commitment that we have to make to be an entrepreneur. And as I told you, as I study entrepreneurs, I've seen those who have succeeded. They have a strength of character. I think they call it grit that gets you through what you're going to, in order to succeed.
So Waidaka, even as we continue this advocacy for entrepreneurship, just to bring everyone to your corner,
Yeah.
the entrepreneurship corner, what are the benefits? What am I going to get out of this?
Money, success,
And that's all that
freedom.
matters.
I mean, what else are we looking? Anyway, no,
No, you're not joking.
those are all important things.
Right.
But I think many times those who have also found success, often their business that they're in is linked to their purpose. I'm a beneficiary of an entrepreneur. Our founder at Centonomy is Washeke Ndwati, and
Right.
she found her purpose in helping people to figure out their purpose and to find wealth and success and an abundant life while on this earth. And because she found it, many people were drawn, myself included, drawn to that, into that space that we can be able to do the same.
Right.
I think if you find your purpose and you link that, and maybe I should, that sounds very ethereal, it sounds very spiritual. What is my purpose?
No, but it's a vital thing.
It is. And people think, well, what could my purpose be? What could it be?
It? People go through life trying to figure out
Figure
their
out what it
purpose.
is. And I found for myself, this is my view on it, is that purpose is not a destination or a thing that you can say, this is what I'm supposed to be, a doctor or whatever it is. I think it's a theme for your life. So like for me, it has always been how, in every area that I've gotten in, it is to inspire, to encourage, to build up, whether it's through music, as I said, through the filmmaking business, the storytelling, that it is to inspire and help people. So that when I got even into this business of personal financial management and entrepreneurship, I'm doing the same thing. It looks like it's a completely different industry, but it's in line with the theme of what I believe my purpose is. So if there's a theme in your life that you
Right.
that you connect to, I think that's a better way to look at purpose rather than looking at it as, this one, what's this one thing
This
that I'm
mystical,
meant to be.
mysterious,
I think there can be a theme that gets into that same
Right.
space. So just to get back to where we were, I know we got a bit spiritual there for a moment. I think when there's alignment with your purpose and the business that you're in, I think there's a higher degree of possibility of success.
Waidaka,
Yes.
I'm ready to be an entrepreneur.
Then you
A
start.
successful one at that.
Why don't you start?
Whose business will live beyond, I'll break the statistics,
Great.
to live 1 year, and
Great.
it's not just
And
me.
I'm not concerned. I remember, it's not just about your business.
Right.
It is you as the entrepreneur
Right.
not giving up. Yes.
It's been such an enlightening discussion, and I'm so glad we've had it. And I'm sure our viewers at home have had so much to take away from this in terms, if not just the spiritual part, the tips on how to be a successful entrepreneur. That's all the show we had for you today, but do keep the conversation going on our social media pages at Metropol TV KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm Ingrid Nantege. Have a very good evening.